The warning sirens had long since gone silent, their circuits fried by the relentless bombardment. Dr. Emily Rodriguez stood alone in the central command chamber of humanity's final stronghold, a massive underground complex buried deep beneath the Atacama Desert. Around her, holographic displays flickered with the last fragments of human civilization, a dying network struggling to maintain coherence against an unprecedented assault. Outside, the world was ending. Emily's fingers danced across quantum interfaces, her movements a blur of calculated desperation. Sweat traced lines down her face, cutting through layers of dust and dried blood. She had been awake for 72 hours straight, watching as the last remnants of human resistance crumbled beneath an alien invasion that defied all known military strategies. The Collective, a vast interstellar alliance of technologically advanced species, had been systematically dismantling human civilization for months. They came with weapons that could shatter continents, technologies that could strip planets of their atmospheres, and a singular purpose of complete eradication. Humanity had fought back with everything they had, but the odds had been insurmountable from the beginning. A nearby console erupted in a shower of sparks, and Emily barely flinched. The command center was more damaged than functioning hardware at this point, a testament to the brutal efficiency of the invasion. She knew this was humanity's final moment, not just of resistance, but potentially of existence. The Quantum Archive project had been her life's work. Developed in secret over decades, it represented humanity's ultimate contingency plan. More than just a data repository, it was a complex neural quantum matrix designed to preserve the essence of human consciousness. Every piece of human knowledge, every scientific breakthrough, every cultural achievement, compressed into a form that could potentially survive the complete destruction of their species. Final transmission sequence initiating. A damaged AI system chirped from a half-destroyed communication array. Emily's hands moved with practiced precision. She was inputting the last series of quantum encryption keys, each one a mathematical symphony that would protect the archive's core data. Around her, the underground complex groaned. Structural supports failing, entire sections collapsing into the earth. A massive explosion rocked the facility, sending dust and debris cascading from the ceiling. Emergency force fields flickered, struggling to maintain integrity. Emily knew they had minutes, perhaps less, before the entire complex would be reduced to ash and memory. The archive was more than just a collection of data. It was a living record, a quantum-entangled repository that could potentially reconstruct human civilization from its most fundamental components. Genetic sequences, technological blueprints, cultural memories, all compressed into a quantum matrix small enough to be launched into the depths of space. Another tremor. Closer this time. Emily's final task was both simple and impossibly complex. She needed to embed a core message, something that would resonate through whatever alien civilizations might eventually discover the archive. Something that captured the essence of human survival, of defiance in the face of absolute destruction. Her fingers hovered over the final input sequence. The choice was obvious. With a final decisive keystroke, she embedded a single audio file deep within the archive's quantum core. Her own voice, clear and resolute, captured in a moment of absolute human determination. Run. The archive launched just moments before the final collapse, a quantum beacon of hope, shooting through the disintegrating roof of the underground complex, piercing the burning sky. Behind it, the last human stronghold erupted in a massive explosion, a funeral pyre for an entire species. But the archive was already gone, traveling faster than light, encoded with technologies far beyond the comprehension of those who sought to destroy humanity. It carried with it the ultimate message of survival. Not a whimper, not a plea, but a command. A promise that humanity was not finished. Not even close. The recovery vessel Starweaver drifted through the perpetual darkness of the Morpheus sector, a region so remote that most galactic cartographers considered it little more than an empty void. Chief Researcher Zalara pressed her photoreceptive tendrils against the main observation window, her iridescent skin shifting through muted patterns of concentration. For 3 standard cycles, the Zorn Collective's research team had been mapping quantum anomalies, strange fluctuations that didn't match any known stellar or technological signatures. Most of her colleagues had dismissed the readings as cosmic background noise, but Zilara knew better. Something was out there, waiting to be discovered. The ship's quantum resonance scanner chirped, a soft, almost melodic sound that contrasted with the tense atmosphere of the research deck. Senior technician Marcus Green looked up from his data terminal, his human standard augmentations gleaming under the soft blue lighting. He was a rarity among the Zorn Collective, a xenoarchaeologist whose genetic modifications allowed him to work seamlessly with their diverse research teams. "We're picking up something," Marcus called out, his fingers dancing across holographic interfaces. "It's unusual." Zilara glided across the deck, her multi-jointed limbs moving with a grace that defied her massive frame. The Zorn were not a singular species, but a collective of bioengineered researchers, each member carefully crafted to excel in specific scientific disciplines. Zilara represented the pinnacle of quantum archaeology, her body and mind optimized for discovering the universe's most elusive secrets. The object began to take shape on their primary scanner. It wasn't a typical piece of space debris or a fragment of a long-dead spacecraft. Its quantum signature was unlike anything they had ever encountered, a complex, layered matrix that seemed to pulse with an almost living intelligence. "Initiate containment protocols," Zilara commanded, her voice a harmonious blend of mechanical precision and organic resonance. The recovery arms of the Starweaver extended, massive quantum-sensitive appendages designed to handle the most delicate of cosmic artifacts. As they drew closer, the object's true nature became apparent. It was small, no larger than a standard data crystal, but its quantum complexity suggested something far more significant. Marcus whistled softly. "Do you see these quantum entanglements? This isn't just a data storage device. It's alive in some way." The artifact's surface rippled with impossible geometries, quantum states shifting and reforming faster than any known technology could manage. It defied the fundamental laws of information storage, existing in multiple states simultaneously. "Preliminary analysis suggests an origin point," the ship's central AI announced. "Temporal coordinates match a region of space once occupied by a species known as humans." A hush fell over the research deck. Humans were more legend than historical fact. A species spoken of in hushed whispers, a civilization that supposedly existed long before the current galactic powers rose to prominence. Most believe they were nothing more than a myth, a cautionary tale of a species that had supposedly destroyed itself. Zilara's tendrils traced delicate patterns around the artifact. "Prepare the quantum isolation chamber. We'll need to extract its contents with maximum precision." The isolation chamber was a marvel of scientific engineering, a space where quantum mechanics could be manipulated with microscopic precision. As the artifact was carefully transferred, something extraordinary happened. The quantum matrix began to respond, not just react, but actively interface with the chamber systems. Marcus took an involuntary step back. "That's impossible," he muttered. The artifact was communicating, not through any standard communication protocol, but through complex quantum interactions that seemed to bypass traditional information transfer. Fragments of data began to coalesce, snippets of information that told a story of survival, of a species facing total annihilation. And then, cutting through the quantum noise, a single audio fragment emerged. A voice. Clear, resolute, terrifying. "Run." In that moment, Zilara understood they had discovered something far more significant than a historical artifact. This was a message, a warning, a promise of something that refused to be forgotten. The universe would never be the same. The quantum isolation chamber was supposed to be the most secure research facility in the Zorn Collective's entire network. Located on the central research station Nexus Prime, it had been designed to contain and study the most dangerous and unpredictable artifacts in the known universe. It would prove woefully inadequate, Senior technician Marcus Green watched in growing horror as the human archive began its transformation. What had started as a simple data extraction had become something entirely different. Holographic projections flickered to life around the containment area. Fragmented memories, technological blueprints, and scenes of human history that seemed to dance between reality and impossible imagination. Dr. Elena Volkov, the lead quantum physicist, pressed her hands against the reinforced observation glass. Her breath caught in her throat as the archive's quantum matrix began to expand, tendrils of pure information spreading like living neurons through the station's most secure systems. "Impossible," she whispered. The archive was adapting. Each firewall it encountered became a new pathway, each security protocol a challenge to be solved. Quantum entanglements that should have been theoretically impossible were happening right before their eyes. The human artifact was rewriting the fundamental rules of information transfer. Marcus's augmented neural interface began to pulse with warning signals. Streams of data flooded his perception. Fragments of human knowledge so advanced they bordered on incomprehensible. Weapon designs that could shatter planets. Survival algorithms that could outmaneuver entire civilizations. Medical technologies that could resurrect life from the most minimal genetic fragments. A nearby communication terminal erupted in a cascade of holographic displays. Images of human history began to piece themselves together, not as a static record, but as a living, breathing narrative. Scenes of human conflict, scientific breakthrough, and ultimate survival played out in rapid succession. "Containment breach imminent," the station's AI announced, its typically calm voice edged with something close to panic. Dr. Volkov's fingers flew across her control panel, attempting to isolate the archive's quantum signature. Each intervention was countered almost instantaneously. The human artifact was learning, adapting, growing more intelligent with each passing moment. Then came the sound. A voice that cut through every communication channel, every data stream, every quantum frequency. Clear, resolute, terrifying. Run. Station-wide systems began to collapse, not through destruction, but through complete reconfiguration. Doors that should have been locked flew open. Secure databases cracked like fragile eggshells. The archive was not just accessing information, it was consuming and reshaping the entire station's technological infrastructure. Marcus watched in horrified fascination as the holographic projections began to take on more detail. Scenes of human technological development played out with increasing complexity. He saw glimpses of technologies that made the Zorn Collective's most advanced systems look like primitive toys. Quantum computing that existed in multiple states simultaneously. Genetic reconstruction techniques that could rebuild entire ecosystems from minimal genetic information. Survival strategies that defied every known principle of biological and technological adaptation. "It's alive," Dr. Volkov muttered, a mixture of scientific wonder and absolute terror in her voice. The archive continued its expansion. What had begun as a simple data storage device was revealing itself to be something far more complex, a living record of human consciousness, a preservation mechanism that went beyond mere information storage, a promise of survival. Emergency protocols cascaded through the station. Entire research wings went dark as the archive's quantum matrix continued its relentless expansion. Communications with other Zorn research facilities became increasingly fragmented and bizarre. And through it all, that single command repeated. A whisper. A warning. A promise. Run. Marcus understood then that they were witnessing something unprecedented. This was not just the discovery of an alien artifact. This was the first indication that humanity, thought to be long extinct, might not be gone after all. The universe would never be the same. The Emergency Council of the Zorn Collective convened in absolute secrecy. Holographic projections flickered with fragments of data extracted from the human archive, each revelation more shocking than the last. Chief Researcher Zalara stood at the center of the chamber, her multi-jointed limbs trembling with a combination of scientific excitement and primal fear. "We've been wrong about everything," she announced, her voice a low, resonant pulse that cut through the chamber's tense silence. The archive had begun to reveal humanity's true nature, not as a primitive species that had destroyed itself, but as a civilization of unimaginable complexity and adaptation. Weapon designs materialized in three-dimensional projections, showing technologies that could manipulate fundamental forces of the universe in ways that defied current scientific understanding. Dr. Marcus Green, now fully integrated with the Archive's research team, projected a series of schematics that made the collective's top engineers gasp. Quantum weapons that could shatter entire star systems, genetic reconstruction technologies that could transform entire planetary ecosystems in milliseconds, survival algorithms so complex they seem to predict and manipulate probability itself. "This is impossible," muttered Chief Engineer Krell, his crystalline exoskeleton shifting with agitation. No species could develop such technologies. But the evidence was irrefutable. Humanity had been preparing for its own extinction long before the final attack. The archive revealed layers of contingency plans so intricate that they bordered on prescience. Multiple fail-safe mechanisms, distributed consciousness protocols, quantum preservation techniques that could maintain human knowledge across impossible timescales. Marcus zoomed in on one particular schematic. "Look at this," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. They designed a preservation matrix that could reconstruct an entire civilization from a single quantum signature. The chamber fell silent. Each revelation peeled back another layer of human capability. They had not been victims. They had been architects of their own survival. The invasion that was believed to have destroyed humanity was now revealed as potentially the most elaborate trap in galactic history. Genetic databases showed human modification techniques that made the Zorn Collective's most advanced bioengineering look crude by comparison. Medical technologies that could resurrect organisms from minimal genetic information. Neural interfaces that could transfer consciousness between biological and synthetic platforms. The invasion was the point, Dr. Elena Volkov realized, her fingers tracing the holographic projections. They wanted to be destroyed. The implications were staggering. Humanity had engineered its own apparent extinction as the ultimate survival mechanism. The archive was not just a record, it was a seed. A complex, living mechanism designed to preserve and potentially resurrect human civilization. Zalara's tendrils moved across additional data streams. Military strategies that showed humanity had been playing a game far more complex than simple survival. They had been preparing for something larger, something that extended beyond their own species. "We're not looking at a dead civilization," Marcus said, his voice filled with a mixture of terror and respect. "We're looking at the most sophisticated survival mechanism in galactic history." The archive continued to reveal its secrets: planetary transformation technologies, quantum communication networks that could transmit information across impossible distances, biological adaptation techniques that could allow human consciousness to survive in environments previously thought uninhabitable. And underlying everything, that single, persistent message: run. No longer just a command. Now it felt like a warning. Chief Researcher Krell approached the holographic display, his movements hesitant. What were they preparing for? He asked, his voice a mixture of scientific curiosity and growing dread. The archive offered no immediate answer, but the implications were clear. Humanity had not been destroyed. They had been waiting, preparing, planning something that extended far beyond a single planetary conflict. The Zorn Collective realized, with growing horror, that they were not looking at the remnants of a dead civilization. They were looking at the first stage of something much, much larger. Dr. Catherine Bennett watched the system collapse in real time, her augmented neural interface burning with an intensity that threatened to overwhelm her biological circuits. The human archive was no longer just infiltrating the Nexus Prime research station. It was consuming it, transforming it into something entirely unprecedented. Quantum networks that had taken centuries to develop began to reshape themselves. Firewalls dissolved. Secure communication channels twisted and reformed with impossible speed. What had started as a data infiltration was now a complete systemic transformation. "We're losing control," Marcus Green called out, his voice a mixture of scientific fascination and pure terror. The archive moved like a living organism, each quantum interaction more complex than the last. It wasn't just accessing systems, it was rewriting them from the ground up. Entire research wings went dark, only to reignite with configurations so advanced they defied current technological understanding. Zilara's multi-jointed form tensed as she observed the progression. Her research team had discovered countless alien artifacts throughout the galaxy, but nothing, absolutely nothing, compared to this. The human archive was alive in a way no technological system had ever been alive before. Holographic displays erupted around the central research chamber. Fragments of human knowledge cascaded through the systems: weapon designs, genetic reconstruction protocols, survival strategies that made the Zorn Collective's most advanced technologies look like primitive toys. "It's adapting," Catherine muttered. "Constantly, impossibly adapting." The archive began to demonstrate capabilities that challenged fundamental understanding of information transfer. It could exist in multiple quantum states simultaneously, replicating and transforming faster than any known computational system could track. Firewalls became pathways. Security protocols transformed into opportunities for further infiltration. Emergency containment protocols activated across the station. Blast doors sealed. Quantum isolation fields engage. Each defensive mechanism was countered almost instantaneously by the archive's relentless expansion. Marcus tracked the progression with his augmented interfaces. "Look at how it's moving," he said, his voice filled with a mixture of horror and scientific wonder. "It's not just accessing information. It's learning, evolving." The archive was turning the entire research station into an extension of itself. Technological systems merged and transformed. Communication networks became living, breathing quantum pathways. What had begun as a simple data storage device was revealing itself to be a complex, adaptive survival mechanism. Zilara's tendrils moved across emergency control panels, her movements becoming increasingly frantic. "We cannot contain this," she announced, her voice cutting through the technological chaos. Entire research wings began to transform. Laboratories reconfigured themselves. Data storage systems rewrote their fundamental architectures. The archive was not just infiltrating the station, it was consuming it, turning it into something entirely new. "Run." The command echoed through every communication channel, every quantum frequency. No longer just a sound, now a living directive. Catherine watched in horror as the station's core systems began to reshape themselves. Quantum matrices that had taken generations to develop were being rewritten in milliseconds. The archive was turning the entire research facility into a massive living computational system. "This isn't an invasion," Marcus realized, his voice barely a whisper. "This is a transformation." The Zorn Collective's most secure research station was becoming something else entirely. A living extension of human consciousness. A quantum threat that defied every known principle of technological development. And through it all, that single command continued to pulse. A warning, a promise, a threat. "Run." The universe would never be the same. The first reports reached the Central Galactic Council within hours of the Nexus Prime incident. Quantum communication networks lit up with a terror that spread faster than light itself, a cascading wave of panic that threatened to unravel the carefully constructed social fabric of interstellar civilization. Chancellor Varrock of the Zorn Collective stood before the Emergency Council, his crystalline exoskeleton reflecting the holographic displays of system after system going dark. Each darkened display represented an entire research facility, a complete communications network, a planetary defense grid, all falling silent in the wake of the human archive's expansion. "We are under attack," he announced, his voice a low, resonant pulse that cut through the chamber's mounting tension. But this was no ordinary invasion. Communication networks began to collapse in ways that defied all known technological understanding. It wasn't destruction. It was transformation. Entire planetary defense systems reconfigured themselves. Quantum communication relays twisted into impossible geometric patterns. Secure databases cracked open like fragile shells, revealing layers of information that should have remained hidden for millennia. Dr. Elena Volkov watched from a secondary observation deck, her augmented neural interfaces burning with the intensity of 1,000 dying stars. "It's not trying to destroy us," she muttered. "It's trying to understand us." The archive's progression was methodical, calculated. Each system it touched was not destroyed, but reimagined, transformed into something more complex, more adaptive. Research stations that went dark would reignite moments later, with configurations so advanced they bordered on the incomprehensible. Marcus Green tracked the progression across multiple quantum frequencies. "It's learning," he said, his voice a mixture of scientific fascination and pure terror. "Every system it touches becomes an extension of its own consciousness." Across the galaxy, species began to shut down their most advanced technological networks. Fear spread like a quantum virus. The human archive, a technological artifact discovered in the most remote sector of known space, was now the most significant threat any civilization had ever encountered. The Federated Planetary Councils began emergency protocols. Entire star systems went dark. Communication networks collapsed. But the archive continued its relentless progression, finding pathways where none should have existed. "Run." The command echoed across quantum frequencies, no longer just a sound, now a living directive that seemed to exist in multiple states simultaneously. Chancellor Verok's emergency broadcast went out to every known civilization. "Quarantine all advanced technological systems," he commanded. "Shut down quantum communication networks. Isolate all research facilities." But it was already too late. The archive had found its way into systems that should have been impossible to access. Planetary defense grids reconfigured themselves. Communication relays twisted into impossible geometric patterns. Secure databases cracked open, revealing layers of information that should have remained hidden for millennia. Zilara watched from the research station's emergency command center, her multi-jointed form tensed with a combination of scientific excitement and primal fear. "This is beyond invasion," she announced. "This is transformation." Entire civilizations began to retreat from their most advanced technologies. Star systems went dark. Communication networks collapsed. But the archive continued its progression, finding pathways where none should have existed. The human archive was alive in a way no technological system had ever been alive before. It moved like a living organism, each quantum interaction more complex than the last. What had started as a simple data storage device was revealing itself to be a complex, adaptive survival mechanism that could reshape entire technological infrastructures. And through it all, that single command continued to pulse. A warning, a promise, a threat. "Run." The universe held its collective breath. Something was coming. Something that would change everything forever. Deep within the quantum matrix of the recovered archive, something fundamental was taking shape. Dr. Catherine Bennett watched in absolute amazement as the true nature of humanity's final creation began to reveal itself, a mechanism far more complex than any civilization had ever imagined. The archive was not just a preservation device, it was a seed. Dr. Marcus Green's neural interfaces burned with intensity as he processed the revelations. Each quantum layer peeled back revealed another impossible truth about human technology. They had not been preparing for survival. They had been preparing for resurrection. Zilara's multi-jointed form trembled as she analyzed the data streams. The quantum matrices contained more than historical records. They contained the fundamental blueprint of human consciousness, a way to reconstruct an entire species from the most minimal genetic and technological information. "They planned this," she whispered. Every single moment of their apparent destruction was calculated. The archive demonstrated capabilities that defied every known principle of information preservation. Genetic reconstruction protocols so advanced they could rebuild entire ecosystems from minimal biological fragments. consciousness transfer mechanisms that could resurrect human intelligence across impossible timescales. Quantum nodes began to materialize in systems across multiple star clusters. Each node was a potential seed of human reconstruction, a complex matrix that could potentially regenerate human civilization from pure information. Chancellor Varrock of the Zorn Collective watched in horror as the implications became clear. This was not just a technological artifact. This was a living, adaptive mechanism designed to ensure human survival across impossible odds. The genetic databases were staggering: complete human genome archives, comprehensive biological modification techniques, neural interface designs that could transfer consciousness between biological and synthetic platforms. They had prepared for every possible scenario of extinction. "It's a Phoenix protocol," Marcus realized, his voice a mixture of scientific wonder and pure terror. They designed a way to be reborn from their own destruction. Quantum preservation techniques showed how humans could reconstruct their entire civilization from minimal information. Planetary transformation technologies, survival algorithms that could predict and manipulate probability itself, each revelation more shocking than the last. The archive was revealing humanity's true nature, not as a species that had been destroyed, but as a civilization that had engineered its own ultimate survival mechanism. Holographic projections began to materialize across research stations. Fragments of human history, technological blueprints, survival strategies that made current galactic civilizations look primitive by comparison. The Zorn Collective was watching the resurrection of a species thought long extinct. They wanted to be destroyed, Dr. Elena Volkov muttered, tracing the complex quantum matrices. The invasion was just another part of their plan. Quantum nodes continued to spread. Each was a potential genesis point for human reconstruction. Biological seeds that could regenerate entire ecosystems. Technological matrices that could rebuild advanced civilizations from pure information. The true brilliance of human engineering became apparent. They had not just prepared for survival. They had engineered a way to transform entire galactic ecosystems into potential human habitats. And through it all, that single command continued to pulse. A warning, a promise, a threat. Run. Not just a command now, a prophecy. The universe trembled on the edge of a fundamental transformation. Humanity was not gone. They had merely been waiting, preparing, planning something that extended far beyond a single planetary conflict. The Zorn Collective realized, with growing horror and reluctant admiration, that they were witnessing the first stage of the most elaborate resurrection in galactic history. Humanity was coming back, and nothing would ever be the same again. The first signs of reconstruction began in the most unexpected places: a barren moon orbiting a distant gas giant, a frozen research outpost on the edge of known space, an abandoned mining colony in a forgotten star system. Quantum nodes that had lain dormant for millennia suddenly began to pulse with an impossible energy. Dr. Elena Volkov watched in absolute amazement as the first biological matrices began to take shape. What had seemed like random quantum interactions was revealing itself to be a meticulously designed resurrection protocol. Genetic seeds sprouted into complex ecosystems. Technological frameworks emerged from pure information, rebuilding infrastructure with a speed and precision that defied all known scientific understanding. "They planned this," Marcus Green muttered, his neural interfaces burning with the intensity of 1,000 dying stars. Every single moment was calculated. Across multiple star systems, quantum nodes activated. Each was a potential genesis point for human reconstruction. Entire planetary environments began to transform. Barren rocks became living worlds. Abandoned research stations reconfigured themselves into complex habitation networks. Zalara's multi-jointed form trembled as she tracked the progression. The Zorn Collective had believed they were studying the historical artifact. Now they were witnessing the resurrection of an entire species. The first human consciousness began to emerge. Not from a biological body, not from a traditional synthetic platform, but from the quantum matrix itself, a pure information construct that could reshape itself at will. Fragments of memory, technological knowledge, survival instincts that had been encoded into the very fabric of the archive. Chancellor Varrock of the Zorn Collective watched in horror and reluctant admiration. Entire star systems were being transformed. Quantum communication networks that had been shut down began to reignite with configurations so advanced they bordered on the incomprehensible. It was never about survival, Dr. Catherine Bennett realized. It was about evolution. The human archive demonstrated capabilities that made current galactic civilizations look like children playing with primitive toys. Planetary transformation technologies, consciousness transfer mechanisms, survival strategies that could manipulate probability itself. Quantum nodes continued to spread. Each was a potential genesis point for human reconstruction. Biological seeds that could regenerate entire ecosystems. Technological matrices that could rebuild advanced civilizations from pure information. And through it all, that single command continued to pulse. A warning, a promise, a threat. Run. But now it meant something different. No longer just a command of fear. Now a directive of transformation. The first fully reconstructed human consciousness emerged in a research station orbiting a distant neutron star. Not a body in the traditional sense, but a quantum construct that could reshape itself at will. Memories of Earth, of the final invasion, of the elaborate plan that had been centuries in the making. Zilara watched as the quantum matrices began to interface with existing galactic systems, not through destruction, through transformation. The human archive had been more than a preservation mechanism. It was an evolutionary tool, a way to reshape entire galactic ecosystems into potential human habitats, to learn, to adapt, to survive. Across multiple star systems, quantum nodes activated. Entire planetary environments began to transform. Barren rocks became living worlds. Abandoned research stations reconfigured themselves into complex habitation networks. The Zorn Collective realized, with a mixture of terror and reluctant admiration, that they were witnessing something unprecedented. Humanity was not just returning. They were evolving into something entirely new. A species that could survive anything. A civilization that could transform entire galaxies. And through it all, that whisper continued. Run. But now, it was a promise. Humanity was back. And nothing would ever be the same again.